turn to Governor Christie, and considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was all.
By the way, I just want to point this out. I'm sure certain people, well, that's still Islamophobic. I've already explained myself, and I've said previously some things. So I'll just point out just one more thing, is that Islam used to be a very advanced, they used to have very advanced cultures. They used to be the place to go for all medicine, for architecture, and so on. They used to be that place, the go-to if you wanted to advance yourself, especially in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages in Europe. They were the most advanced at the time. That's why they were such a threat. The Ottoman Empire, that's why it was such a threat to Europe. But at some point they decided that all these arts, all these other things, it's not allowed. I don't remember exactly the context of that. Long story short is that they decided that those things are not good, and ever since then they have stagnated. That's why the Ottoman Empire collapsed in part, but they've not done too much progress on that. So I mean, I've done the research. I know my way around the history of Islam and of the Ottoman Empire and so on and so forth. I'm not talking of ignorance and being, oh, he's so scared. He's probably... Just shut up. I've done the research. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And do not insult my intelligence when you say, oh, you're Islamophobic. I have very good reason to be afraid of Islam. Very good reason. Gas the Jews.
Also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans?
Oh, yes, I'm not. Just one more thing. I'm sorry, I'm pausing so many times. Just on the gas the Jews part, don't forget that these people would be considered on a daily basis to be normal people. They're your friends, your co-workers, your neighbors. Then suddenly out of nowhere, they're shouting gas the Jews. None of their neighbors would have guessed, wait, these are normal people. They're just like us. No, they're not. No, they're not.
And they're also feeling afraid for their safety right now.
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001. And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And so first, we heard credible reports about Jewish students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them. The same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion, if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you...
Hamas and Hezbollah they represent the Muslims. Sorry, actually, that is Hezbollah is in Lebanon, but Hamas represents the Muslim majority in Gaza. And they are two different things, of course. Hamas is in a way it's separate from the citizenry, so-called citizenry of Gaza, but the same goes with Jews. Not all Jews are Israelis, so I don't know exactly what he was trying to say there. That there's no equivalence between the two, because one is the government of Israel, then you have Jews who are not even Israeli; they are American Jews. So, I mean, whatever.
What do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And
They know
idea
that.
they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries.
What a piece of crap.
Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources.
There you go. There you go. It's just plain old hatred for Russia. That's it. And by the way, when they had Stalin in there, when they had their other dictators who were killing thousands of people in Russia, they loved the guy. The neocons loved the guy. But now we got somebody who's more pro the United States. Let's alienate them. And now when I say, well, actually he was the most pro United States Russian president that the Russians ever had. Oh, now I look like the weirdo. What do you mean? Look at him. Look what he said. Yes, we know what he said. That's after we alienated him. But here we go. Russia is the bad guy now because they're not killing enough civilians. But when they were killing enough civilians, when we had Stalin in there, oh, he was good Uncle Joe. Wait, good Uncle Joe. No, not Joe Biden, but the other one. So I know it's confusing from time to time.
And the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine and Israel, that's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel.
We're 100% undeniably bankrupting ourselves because there are foreign powers that have decided that they want our money.
And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America.
Correct.
Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency,
Well, not only those countries, but yeah, correct.
at our border, we
Senator
have
Scott.
to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two,
Vivek is like, no.
after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources and, frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military.
Keeping our NATO partners satisfied and content. That's what's going on here.
Is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article
Vivek
5
is like,
would
nah.
require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine Hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition
But
parties.
even if it were, who gives a crap? It's not the 51st state. Stop sending away our money and bankrupting us. And even if you weren't bankrupting us, it's not the government's money to spend on another nation.
Parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk, these are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one
Mr.
time
Ramaswamy, thank you. That's time.
at least to
Mr.
condemn
Ramaswamy,
their
thank
banning
you.
of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank
Quiet. Let him cook. Let him cook.
you.
Talking out of both sides.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley,
Well, she deserves to
what is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
Let him cook.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to
The
see
fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this
the
is what
question.
I will tell you.
We're
is,
driving Russia
first of all,
into
let's
China's
remember-
hands because of
He is correct. Let him cook. What the hell is going on? Oh, this is a very good pause moment. I love it. Look at that face. She wants to murder him. Oh, this is such a good moment. Screenshot this and send it around. This is good.
You
these
had
foolish
your time to
policies.
talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank
Ambassador
you. The
Keith.
first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all
Oh, boo-hoo. It's not the... How many... I feel like I have to beat myself over and over again. It's not the 51st state of the United States.
know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy.
Love it. So millions of people die in Ukraine. You just gotta love that she's not talking about what about Bush and his intelligence agencies lying about Iraq and 1.6 million people dying over there. Should the United States government prosecute President Bush for 1.6 million deaths? That's something to think about.
No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real.
We need a lot of friends, and here we go. After 9/11, we need a lot of friends. Guess who freaking helped out after 9/11? I'll give you a hint. The name starts with R. Yup, it was Russia. Russia helped us out after 9/11. They had a lot of intelligence on Afghanistan. They invaded Afghanistan throughout the Cold War, and they had a lot of intelligence on the inner workings of the governments and bases, military bases, and so on and so forth. So they shared it with the United States in order for the United States to be more effective in invading Afghanistan. This is what I meant. This is in part what I meant. There's much more to talk about, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But there's much more to talk about how Russia helped out the United States. But no, we need to attack. We need to continuously attack them. They are the most pro-Russia, the most pro the United States they've ever been. But right now, good job, neocons. You're doing an excellent job.
There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China's coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know.
And there's also a reason why that other country wants us to do this or that thing. Not listening to the American people, just listening to other countries. This is neocon stuff. Always.
Know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador.
We have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is your take? And how long should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance is not just with Russia.
Your sons and daughters have to be shot and killed because we're the leaders of the free world. Remember, neocon.
And China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the
Democracy, 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 democracy. Have I persuaded you on why we should get involved in Ukraine and continue to do so? Democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. Democracy is cringe. Next.
By the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise.
And also, the other part of that deal was that we won't continue to expand NATO eastward. That was the other part. But we lied and we continue to do so. And here we are. Here we are. So they won't tell you this, but yep, we lied. And now we're saying, why would the Russians do this? Maybe because you lied?
Promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
And the absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Governor Christie, thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president, that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look,
talking from both sides out of your mouth. Earlier, he did not make it this clear, so we'll see. But at least he's now stating it clearly.
look at the threats that we face. Terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse.
See, I love that that he's switching it up, and now I don't remember who else switched it up and started talking about the border too. I love it. You gotta switch up the questions, because the questions that matter the most will not be asked, and it's the responsibility of the presidential candidates to switch up the question to talk about what really matters.
And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.